So, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our March edition of the Employers Advantage team recording. Where for March, we wanted to really keep things open and want to discuss some of the changes that we've seen through. Uh, okay, some of the changes that we've seen in 2021 so far. As you know, we've had a new administration, which obviously brings change. And there have also been changes that have affected the workplace, affected HR, and affected small businesses. So we want to talk about those. But before we begin, we want to acknowledge our teammates who are not here with us. Shannon was not able to make it, as well as Tammy. And then there's Jessica, and she's celebrating. So we congratulate Jessica at this point. And then we also have one new addition to our team that we'd love to welcome. So we have Rachel Vradenberg. She's our newest member. She just joined us this week, and so we welcome her. We're excited to have Rachel, and she's going to answer all of our questions today because that's why she was brought here.
No
It's
pressure.
great to be here. Thank you, Robert. Can't wait to be in the discussion and part of the Employers Advantage team.
We welcome you. Welcome you. So, good morning, team. Good morning to everyone. If you've been following us now, you know I'll let everyone just introduce themselves real quickly, and then we'll jump right in.
I'll go first. Deanna Baumgardner, president of Employers Advantage, and yeah, looking forward to today's discussion. Rachel B.
Rachel Brumbelow,
Our business partner extraordinaire.
thank you very much. And I look forward to contributing something to today's conversation.
Sandra Schutz here, recruiting specialist.
And I'm Rachel, the other Rachel, and the newbie.
Awesome. All right, team, let's jump right in. So 2021, we know that 2020 was an amazing ride in so many ways. And we anticipated that coming into 2021, there would be many changes as it pertained to HR and the workplace and workplace employment. So let's talk about some of those things. So when you think about what you've seen so far in 2021, what would you consider maybe the top two changes in terms of impact on small businesses that you've seen so far with the change in administration?
I'll go first. I think from my perspective, there's two things that are happening is compliance, but not just compliance, but compliance adjustments. So some of the stuff that may have been either enacted last year, or I mean, through the previous administration, or was tabled to be effective this year from the previous administration is being either reversed or frozen, or so it's a confusing time for companies to know what to do. Like the independent contractors clarification that was set to go into effect this month is not happening right now until it can be completely reevaluated, and I imagine it's just going to remain as is. So the loosened restrictions, I guess you could say, for that we were expecting to go into effect this month is not happening, which is impactful specifically for small businesses because they sometimes rely heavily on independent contractors, although probably misclassified, they do it. And so, that's a lot of what we work with our clients is making sure that the classification is appropriate. And then on top of that, I think the second biggest change from the overall learning experience of 2020, and part of what the new administration is going to do is overall employee well-being and wellness. We're going to start to see probably more paid sick leave requirements, either at the state level or at the federal level. We know there's a handful of states that already have it. There's probably going to be a bigger push for parental leave federally, wage and hour increases, things like that. That's what I think is happening.
I would say on top of that, one of the things I've seen with, since I have clients that are in multiple states, is the increase in compliance by the actual states. So it's not necessarily federally, but more and more states are having their own individual mandates where it's crossing in with OSHA as well. And so, you know, fines with OSHA if you're not following these new rules that are being put out, which include, you know, everything we've been hearing for the past year with wearing your mask, keeping your distance, washing your hands, but new ones with employers being required to provide the PPE for their employees, and not just if they are customer or client facing, but also if they're people working from home that will occasionally see a client outside of the office too. So I've been seeing, you know, it's affecting all businesses, but small businesses the most, because they just don't know how to navigate and who they're supposed to listen to with these rules.
Right. I would agree, Rachel. You're seeing a whole list now come out of like COVID response laws. And that's something that we're going to have to really stay on top of, because they're going to change quickly as things are having to be adaptable to the situations. And as folks start returning back to the workplace, it's just going to be a whole different world for them.
Well, one of the, I was going to say, I think this was off of what Deanna was saying, but one of the other new things that I'm seeing too is state mandated paid sick leave. So
Yeah.
I know, Deanna, you were talking about, you know, some different things that you see coming out, and that's one thing that I've already seen with some of these states. So it's, you know, it's not enough if you already offer a PTO policy. This is something that is completely separate. It's managed separately, and it's exclusively for the employees, whether they're hourly or salaried employees, where they have this mandated paid state sick leave.
Awesome. Now, what are you seeing in the small business world as far as, you know, overall kind of some of the reactions of small business owners to some of these state mandated requirements that are coming down? What's been kind of the general consensus?
Can we say that on a recorded
Now,
session?
I think Deanna's face said it all.
I mean, it is what it is, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's what we're here for, is to help them understand why they need
Right.
to do that.
I
No,
I think a lot, I'm sorry, Deanna. I was gonna say, I think a lot of it's panic, right? So,
Mhm.
you know, they're hearing things on the news, or they might read some article, and it's something where, you know, like at the start of the year, we update our clients with anything new that's come out, and but then they'll hear it talked about in a different way online. And so then they're immediately reaching out in a panic to say, oh, but I heard, you know, A, B, and C. And I'm saying, well, we already have that covered. Don't worry about that. But it's just, you know, I think, you know, I will give us a pat on the back with this. It's, they know that they can come to us and that we're going to have the answers for them on how they need to navigate through all of this. And the changes that are happening, you know, sometimes daily, weekly, hourly, whatever.
Yeah.
Around that, I know sometimes messaging from the HR perspective can be a big part of kind of moving the needle a bit with small businesses. What's some of the messaging that you're using in helping small business owners see that, yeah, you know, this may feel like a bit of a headache up front, but here are some of the things maybe long term that can be beneficial to you and your business owner. What are some of the ways that we're kind of changing that and shifting perspective a bit?
By what you just said.
Thanks, Robert.
Yeah, thanks, Robert. Question answered. Next one.
Okay, awesome.
No. It is hard for if you're not in it every day like we are. it's hard to understand a lot of times the why. So we spend a lot of time explaining why it's being done this way and what that means for them, so that they have a comprehensive understanding of what the compliance means for them. And it's not just because we're doing it for fun, you know. And so that's our responsibility, is to decode the HR side of it so that the small business owner can understand what that means to them and their employees.
Absolutely. I know we talked a lot, and obviously COVID was and continues to be a huge, huge ordeal in the world. And there's been a lot of conversation over the last few months regarding vaccines and vaccinations. A lot of employees want to know, can I require vaccinations? Is this something that can be, how do I handle, this vaccine conversation at work? What are some of the challenges that are being faced there? And first of all, are employers able to actually require vaccination? Or, let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I, whether fortunately or unfortunately, have a lot of experience with this one. Yes, private industry employers, they can require their employees to have the vaccine. The two stipulations with that would be if there's a medical reason that they cannot have it, or if they have a seriously held religious belief. One thing with both of those is that the employer can ask for proof. So if it is a mandate that you're going to put out, you can request a note from the doctor, and you can request a note from the religious organization. So whether it's a preacher, pastor, rabbi, or whatever, you can request a letter from them as well. On the employer side, I have not had any of my clients mandate it yet, even mine that are in the medical field, because they are worried about employees resigning because they don't want to have the vaccine. So they have made it heavily suggested and recommended. They have set up appointments for the employees to get it taken, so have made it very easy for them to go get it, paying their employees for the time leaving the office to go get the vaccine as well. As well as if the employee has a reaction to the vaccine and they're not feeling well late, if they go back to work later that day, or they're not feeling well the next day, giving them paid time off, which does not come out of their PTO bank. It's something that the employer is just doing to take care of that.
Yeah. This goes back to you guys remember one of my favorite sayings is, just because you can doesn't mean you should. Right. So for small businesses, just because you can mandate vaccines doesn't necessarily mean you should. And so each business needs to take a look at the industry they're in. Are they client facing? Like Rachel said, are they in the medical industry? If they're a fully remote workforce, you don't need to do a mandated vaccine policy. But at minimum, there should be strong encouragement to have employees vaccinated. And I think I read an article the other day, there was something, it was like less than 10% of all the companies in the US are doing mandated vaccine policies. So, but have a discussion. If you're a business owner considering your options, have a discussion with somebody about it first to understand the ins and outs of some of those regulations, because then you also get into, if you start doing incentives, there's tax implications and there's limits you can do under the EEOC. It just kind of goes on and on and on. It can get ugly.
A good suggestion also, if you're considering it, is to do an anonymous survey. So we did that with one of my clients because they were not sure which way their employees would go if they mandated it. So we just did a survey to find out who would go for the vaccine if it was offered to them. And based on the responses that their team gave, that's when they decided not to mandate it. So it's something, you know, as a company, of course, you know, everyone wants to say, let's all get vaccinated and let's all be safe and try to figure out what our new normal is. But some people have seriously held beliefs, you know, but besides just medical or religious beliefs, some people are against vaccinations and whatnot. And you really have to look at if you're willing to possibly lose team members if you make it a mandate.
Absolutely, absolutely. So what would you suggest? What would be maybe some recommendations? You know, obviously we talked about, you know, what you're legally within your legal right versus, you know, creating kind of that culture and what's the right thing to do. But what are some ways that small business owners can kind of help create a safer work environment outside of you know, the vaccination portion? How can they help protect the workplace?
Rachel V, what do you think?
Yeah, happy to contribute here. I see a lot of people doing staggered return to work, which has been pretty successful from what I've observed, you know, where you work from home 2 days, then you come into work 2 days and alternate so that people can social distance a lot better. Have also seen them redesigning workspaces so that people aren't as on top of each other. And the word collaboration was such a buzz here coming into the last few years. And so they would throw a lot of people like into like a bullpen. And now it's like, whoops, yeah, here we go. We're going to all spread out again. And so you're seeing them social distance that way. And just employers are a lot more responsive and ready to have a remote workplace on a continuing basis, which works really well for a lot of employees. And so if employers are able to do that, or at least partially remote, I think it's become a win-win for both sides.
Yeah, I agree. I love the hybrid model, particularly if somebody was fully in office previously and then they had to go remote for COVID. I think creating some type of hybrid model moving forward is ideal. Because like you said, we have some clients who are on a staggered return to work, or they have a sign-up sheet. Like people have the option of going in or not, but you have to limit the number of people that are in office at the time. So you have to sign up each day. And yeah, there's a lot of different ways to do it appropriately.
Right. There are, and some people have missed that in-person, face-to-face, sitting down and working on a project together. So for those people to be able to go in and be with a peer or a group of peers for a little while, it works for everybody. And so I've really enjoyed watching folks do that too, and kind of get used to, hey, going back to the office isn't all bad either, because it has its own perks versus being able to do some remote.
So I have a question for Sandra.
I was going to say something. Don't ask me it.
Okay, say your thing first.
I was going to say from a recommendation to employers from a COVID perspective is to be prepared to talk about what you're doing and what you're not doing, because so many candidates ask me, what is the interview process going to look like? Is this going to be in person or virtual? Am I going to have to wear a mask when I go in? Are people wearing masks in the office? Are they mandating vaccines? So from a recruitment perspective, whoever is participating in that interview process has to be knowledgeable about what they're doing, what they're not doing, and be ready to explain why. So if you're not wearing masks, if that's not a mandate, then why are you doing that, and what's the alternative? I think we have a swing. We had a very tight market early 2020. Then it became everybody was looking for a job, but I'm seeing it go back to a really tight job market for a number of reasons. And COVID precautions or lack of may be a determining factor, maybe a deal breaker when looking at candidates and if they're going to come on or not. They have plenty of choices right now and can go where they feel safest. So I think it's a huge part affecting recruitment is decisions that are made for the workplace. Managers need to be able to talk about that very confidently.
Yeah, that is such a great point, because the other thing that the new administration has done, which is, since that's kind of the topic, and it goes along with what you just said, Sandra, is they now allow for unemployment if you refuse an offer of employment because the work environment isn't safe, or if you can't work, or you know, quit your job because it's an unsafe work environment due to lack of COVID restrictions.
Mhm.
So that all plays into it.
Yes.
And Sandra is such a great recruiter because she was able to read my mind, because that was literally my question, was what you were seeing from the candidates and what you've been hearing, because
Yes, absolutely. And
I
I
know-
mean, even big job posting sites like Indeed have a huge COVID section so that you can tell people right on the job description what you're doing for the interview process and what you're doing within the office. So it's a huge concern for the candidate population. However they feel, it's definitely affecting recruitment and finding folks.
Rachel, that's funny because that's exactly my plan was to ask Sandra the same thing. How's that affected recruiting?
see, we're all just in each other's heads.
It was Sandra's time. It was Sandra's time.
It was my time.
So I know that, you know, obviously we were discussing, you know, at the end of 2020, we talked about things that we were hearing that were potentially things that could happen or changes that would occur in 2021. Some of those things we've seen halted, other things we've seen kind of come to fruition. Is there anything right now, before we go, is there anything right now as we continue in 2021 that you may be hearing of, or anything you think small business owners maybe they want to be preparing for that could be something coming down the pike?
Me. Hey, I can contribute here. What I'm really interested to see is this whole minimum wage conversation.
Yes, that's what I was-
It recently fell out of the most recent COVID relief package, which I don't know that it's been finalized, but it was a huge point of contention between all the legislative bodies. I think that is a goal for this administration, is to increase minimum wage. And I think that's going to have a huge impact on small businesses from a recruitment perspective, cost perspective. It is really going to impact, I believe, our smaller businesses. So I'd like to hear a little bit. I haven't been able to have those conversations with my clients just yet because it hasn't come to fruition, but have there been conversations, and have people done those cost analysis, and what is that going to look like? And what are some of the ways that we're preparing our clients for that potential cost?
I literally had, when it was first brought up, I had 2 clients call me in a panic the next day, not realizing that, you know, that the government just doesn't say, this is it, we're talking about this, and it happens the next day. And I told, you know, I explained, because, you know, the way I see it being done, as other states have done when they've increased their minimum wage by a drastic amount, is there's a set final rollout date. So it might be like, let's say they decide tomorrow, March 11th, that minimum wage is going to be $15 an hour. It's going to be a couple years
Right.
before it actually is $15 an hour. And so we can work together with our clients to look at the best way to roll that out for them, not just budget wise, but they have to consider, all right, now, you know, because it's going to have to happen somewhere, where do they increase their prices? Is it, you know, if they're selling a particular product, do they raise it by 50 cents, and that covers, you know, because they sell so many of them, does that cover everybody's increase to minimum wage? So, you know, I get it with small businesses thinking, you know, especially if you're paying closer to minimum wage, that there's no way you could ever essentially double people's salaries like that. But it's a process, and it's definitely one that could be handled as long as it's being done the right way and being rolled out the right way. You have to plan.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because some of our small businesses already are struggling with competing with, Harper wants to contribute.
I'd like to know.
So, like we have some clients that might have warehouse folks or entry level manual labor, and they're paying $10 or $12 an hour, but some of the larger organizations that are already jumping to the $15 an hour minimum wage, our small businesses just don't have budget for that necessarily, but they still need the work, the help. And so, they're already competing for talent in that capacity. So I don't know, it's going to be tough. But yeah, like you said, Rachel, they're going to do it sequentially and over a course of time so that there's planning that needs to be done. Rachel V, do you have anything on that?
I think it's really interesting to watch. I've enjoyed reading discussions, pros and cons from both sides. I think we're going to see a lot more automation because of the minimum wage, if it actually does go to $15 an hour. And some of our small businesses may look at that as an option too. Instead of hiring another employee, you try to automate. There will be a lot of things that people do, just like when it was initially put in, it really revolutionized the workplace. And I think that this much of a drastic increase, although yes, it'll be incremental, will revolutionize the way a lot of businesses operate.
Yeah, it's a great point.
Any parting thoughts from anyone? Any world-changing statements or declarations before
Gosh,
we?
that's a lot of pressure.
I was going to say, nobody said that.
Rachel, in case you didn't know, that's our mission, is to change HR, the world of HR, one client at a time.
Yes, that's great.
I think what Sandra said about recruiting and being intentional about the process that you're going to put candidates through, I think that's significant, particularly in such a tight market. And then on the second piece of that is to pay attention to the compliance changes that are going to happen. And, just call us. We'll help.
Yeah.
Call Robert. He's the guy.
Absolutely.
Robert has all your answers.
All the answers.
HR, compliance, legal. Robert's got everything.
All the answers, and they're all sitting right here on this call.
Look how he spins that.
But yeah, that is, one of the major takeaways, that there's so much going on. There's so much change, but understanding that as small business owners, you don't have to try to figure all of this out. That is exactly what we're here for and what our team does. So we definitely are a resource, and we're here to help. So I hope you've enjoyed your time with us today, and hope that this has been informative and helpful in some ways. And we will see you next month.
See you next month.
Bye.